Welcome to Buying Sandlot. I'm Kyle Pagan along with Kyle Scott. We got a great episode for you today talking about the shift in the market of brands, shifting from pro sponsorships to youth sponsorships. And we've got I9 Sports' VP of Marketing, Madison Gates, on to talk about the recent I9 survey and growing youth participation for girls sports. Before we get into the show, tickets for our youth sports business conference in Philadelphia on April 14th and 15th are still available. Get those over at buyingsandlot.com or the link in the show's description because we've got an amazing set of speakers you won't want to miss. And check out the newsletter as we'll be announcing more every week, as well as the content and panels as we get closer to the event at Ballers. Still going strong there, Kyle?
It is. I can give a little bit of a preview of some of the panels, not written in stone yet. So I would say these are written in a semi-permanent pencil,
yeah.
Right? So right now we're looking at panels. We'll have a tech heavy hitters panel that'll include some of the biggest leaders from some of the biggest tech platforms. I think that'll be a must attend. We'll also look at other things like Tech 2.0, sort of the next wave of like these AI first tech platforms that are entering the market, making a lot of noise. Panels on soccer in America, unprecedented opportunity around soccer participation and growth given the World Cup. Sponsorship, which we're going to talk about now. Compliance and safety, right? Increased expectations and liability. And liability, right? So from compliance to player health and safety, lots of business opportunities there. Athlete data and NIL, professionalized rec, which we've talked about a lot here. Keeping the athlete in focus, right? Like all this business going on, lots of private equity entering the space. How does the industry make sure that the athlete remains the center of attention here and what's good for the athlete? Emerging opportunities in sports, streaming, tech startups, and then other things on tourism, investment, certainly, and facilities. So lots of topics. They're coming together. Panels are coming together. We'll roll all that out in the coming weeks. But it's the place
Sounds like
to
a full conference.
It is. It's going to be jam-packed.
I love that.
Plus a pickleball tournament. Plus a pickleball tournament at the evening
simulator
event.
action too. Little padel if anyone's feeling crazy.
I'm playing padel for the second time this week. Tomorrow, actually.
I've got to get some padel rounds in before I get there because I've never touched that sport before.
How's your lateral movement these days?
On a scale of 1 to 10, a 6, a 7, maybe. Do I get nervous?
Okay.
Do I? You don't. Okay. All right.
I've seen you move.
I guess
generous. I've seen you move.
I guess I'm gonna have to wax you in front of everybody at the conference now because of that.
We are gonna need to play. We're gonna need a Buying Sandlot head to head here.
That is true. Hey, listen. Before we do get into sponsorships, I know a lot of parents listen to this, and some might be planning to have another kid shortly. And this was in the newsletter. I just wanted to give you all a little heads up that an economics professor at San Diego State analyzed the birth dates of individual Olympic medalists. Speaking of people with lateral quickness. January, June birthdays, more likely to win gold. Q1 birthdays were more likely to medal than Q4 birthdays. Do you have any future medalists at home? Falls in between those parameters?
Well, sort of, actually. So there's a big Malcolm Gladwell Outliers, famous book Outliers, talking point about how hockey players born in January tend to fare better. So this is a big topic in soccer, actually. A lot of the federations and organizations are switching from January 1st birthday cutoff to August 1st for next season, including so my son, who's born on August 15th, who's pretty small for his age, will now effectively be the oldest kid in his league, in his travel league going forward. So, maybe we have future pro soccer player on our hands. The cutoff benefited him well. If it was a month later, he would be the youngest kid. So sometimes it's the way the ball falls.
I know this will shock you. I am a Q1 birthday, and I was never close to medaling in the Olympics.
Can't believe it. With a quick twitch, those slow twitch muscles of yours.
Yeah,
should probably tell the story about the time we played beach football,
show.
And I was expecting your size and strength to impress, and then I was running out routes into the knee deep water on you.
Here's the thing. I've got great hand-eye coordination. And like you said, if I just maybe had some of these great sponsors that we've had in the past, like MPI Sports, like we had Frank's company On the Radar that he advised us for, if I just would have had them in the back in the day, maybe I would have been able to unlock those hips and have some fast twitch muscles.
We got to get you some of these AI apps that like sort of track the muscular skeletal movements and see what we can do to unlock some fast twitch in you.
Yeah, we need sponsors. And speaking of sponsors, there's been a shift in pro sponsorships to youth to youth sports sponsorships. There's a
Nice.
YouGov Sport and Priority Partnerships report that said parents pay 1.5 times more attention to brands that sponsor their child's youth sports organization than to brands sponsoring professional sports teams they follow. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. It's a really good, I mean, just at a high level, it's a really good sponsorship touch point for reasons I'm sure we'll get into here. But you have a captive audience, right? You have sort of the prime advertising audience demographic, and they're sponsoring something that is, sort of near and dear to the heart, right? And you almost can't escape it, even if you wanted to. So I think there's lots of reasons why youth sponsorship makes sense and is, to me, over the next I don't even want to say this year, 2 to 3 years is just going to explode.
Yeah. As millennials are starting to have kids and kids are starting to get into youth sports and everything that we ever heard growing up was always like millennials, brands have to change their entire strategy because millennials care about things that we value. They want brands to value the same things that we value. But this doesn't shock me. I mean, because do I want to go to a McDonald's because they buy ad space during an Eagles game when I'm watching them on my favorite team? Or do I want to go to the local pizza chain because, they're sponsoring my kids' 9U soccer team? So on the way home, we're like, hey, let's go to the pizza place or whatnot. They're more willing to support those kind of places, especially if it helps like offset the cost of tournaments or registration or facilities costs and everything. So I think this is kind of just a thing where it's like the transition of advertising. It goes from radios and newspapers, TV, internet. Now it goes from pro sports to college sports, and now it's going to unlock in youth sports. Are we going to see 10-year-olds running around on the court with jerseys that look like NASCAR jumpsuits?
Probably.
You think so?
At some point, yeah. Why not? Listen, it's an attention economy, right? So you got to think about where the attention is going. It's in many ways always been on youth sports, but if you have parents spending entire weekends at tournaments or 4 nights a week at a given place, their attention is there, right? And if you think about like TV commercials, lots of issues, because people just pick up their phone during any commercial break. I mean, this is like a media topic that's been beaten to death. But if you just take it like pro sports is prohibitively expensive these days. And I would say dollar for dollar, I've talked to some people in the industry, you may get 5, 10, 50x the ROI per dollar spent on youth sports. So like there's this arbitrage opportunity today, right? So I think that's what you're seeing right now, are brands realizing, I think part and parcel, frankly, with all the media coverage, this could be one of the positive side effects of all the quote negative media coverage around youth sports, is it's now sort of put it into the zeitgeist, how much money, time, and attention goes into youth sports, and brands see that and they see opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's an arbitrage opportunity today for the brands that want to invest millions of dollars, hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars into the space, compared to what they would get by sponsoring the local pro team or running ads during the local MLB broadcast, right? That money can go so much further in youth sports. And the infrastructure, now I sound like a chatbot by using the word infrastructure, but the infrastructure is being built now to facilitate that, right? Even if you wanted to spend $5 million in youth sports, it's like, well, how do you do it, right? There's only I think we'll see more creative solutions, but there's really only a handful of ways to do it now. It's some of the tech platforms that have the reach and the audience that they can support that digitally in addition to physically in person. There's companies like Base Sports Group, which I think is a leader here, Priority Partnerships. Like there's some standalone companies that are really helping to drive that forward and strike the partnerships, not only with the brands, but the big tournament venues, in the case of Base Sports Group, right? So I think tech platforms, standalone agencies, and I think we'll see lots of other just interesting manifestations of this, up to and including, I think eventually we're going to see a brand that effectively owns a youth sports club, right? And you reverse engineer the model where somebody actually operates the club, but they white label the club naming rights to brands, right? And so the brand doesn't have to operate it, but it's their club. That to me feels like a long-term place that we end for sort of these premium travel and maybe more at the high school level, those sorts of teams.
Yeah, coming at it from a club perspective, I do think it will be a little bit of a case-by-case basis. You do look at Rush Soccer; they signed a multi-year partnership with Carvana right across the chest biggest soccer club in the country, correct?
World, they say the world. Yeah, so I think so. Yeah.
But then
and I
on the
know
other
Justin,
hand,
by the way, is speaking at the conference. And I know he's very passionate about what they're doing in sponsorship. And I know they're thinking a lot about how to really capitalize on it, because now they have, they're owned by Pioneer Sports, which have surf soccer. So between Surf and Rush, you have like a 200 plus soccer clubs in America. That's a huge sponsorship unlock for a single sponsor like a Carvana or somebody else. So, whether it's the clubs that have scale, and the more private equity consolidates clubs, right? Well, now a single sponsor can reach how many tens of thousands of athletes and dozens of clubs with a single deal, which wasn't possible before. Mm-hmm. So I think you have agencies, you have tech platforms, you have club roll-ups, and I think, here to untold new, interesting, creative ways for brands to unlock it. Eventually that arbitrage opportunity ends though, right? Like, it will take years, money will flow in because, wow, we can get 10x bang for our buck, but it's capitalism. Eventually things come into equilibrium, and 10 years from now, the effective rate to sponsor, Rush Soccer may be the same as taking out an ad during an MLS match.
So, just to play devil's advocate, do you see the next wave of criticism in youth sports being the local pizza chain was priced out of a Game Changer live stream in their town because the major brands couldn't afford it now? Is that coming to a Wall Street Journal or New York Times near you?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's like spilling tears for the local pizza place, then yeah, right? Like I that will happen. Right. Mm-hmm. I still think that local sponsorship is important and will continue to happen on the local level. But yeah, it's a very antiquated system. Like I said, I think I said it in the last one, buying Sandlot sponsored my son's basketball team. Because when you sign up for a coach, you're like, do you want to sponsor for $300? Everybody says yes. I had one guy like basically put his like real estate holding company for his like personal vacation property as the sponsor of his team, like his kid's team, just to do it. It was like such and such enterprises. No one knew what it was. It was just like his LLC for his vacation property that he stayed in. It wasn't even a business, but so like there's a more sophisticated way to do that. But the counter narrative to that, and this is one of the talking points I think the industry can get on and will get on this year, is how the money through sponsorship maybe brings down the cost of participation. And again, media analogy, right? Newspapers were like $1, sometimes free. Web content was free because it was all ad supported. So like if you just look to the media historically, you didn't always have to pay for stuff because it was ad supported. Youth sports participation generally has been, sort of, either charitable endeavors or, you got to pay some registration fee. But if you have enough sponsors, theoretically, lots of participation for the vast majority, especially recreational things, could be free. But when you have for-profit companies in there, like how much of that actually gets passed back to parents and how much of it just becomes an extra, goes to the bottom line.
Yeah, Eagles
a little
games,
bit of both. There's nothing wrong with either, but it's just a reality.
There's ads everywhere in Eagles games. They're making hand over fist money, and the tickets just seem to be going up, and the PSLs just seem to be going up every single year. So it's like,
that's different though. It's
how?
Because they're selling a product. If people are willing to spend $500 to attend an NFL game, then there's no reason why for-profit teams shouldn't charge as much as they can for the ticket and as much as they can for sponsorship. They're filling stadiums and selling out of sponsorships. Like, it's a no-brainer. And like the for-profit companies in youth sports will do that too. But I do think there comes a point where you can't grow participation if prices keep rising, right? So a way to grow participation might be through increased sponsorship, and you could still net out ahead if you're able to sell sponsorships, reduce your cost. And I think there will be a little bit of a race to the bottom. If you can get more sponsors, if this club is charging $3,000 a year and the other one is charging $5,000, the one that's charging $5,000 is going to lose people to the one that's charging $3,000 because they have more sponsors, right? So like, there's that side of the competitive landscape as well. And on the rec side, for sure. Like, I mean, those are a lot of the nonprofits that can get money back through sponsorship. I know, apps like, Team Snap have sponsorship, and others. Fast Break talks a lot about this, though they're a bit newer. How can we pass money back? Does that impact registration costs? The answer is hopefully. And in some cases it probably does, but it would be good to see numbers attached to like case studies of where that's worked out. I think that's the next step.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What does this mean for like a Game Changer or a Team Snap One who will be live streaming and have ability to, send you a highlight of your kid, and all of a sudden, bang, the replay screen with a State Farm ad comes through. I think Reed talked about that with you. What do you see kind of the advantages they can and capabilities they can do with this?
Reed said it on the podcast a couple of months ago when they were unveiling Team Snap One. I think in that interview, I likened it to advertising in like take NBA 2K games, right?
Hmm.
It didn't subtract from the experience when you played the game and then your dunk highlight was sponsored by Sprite. If anything, to the user, it was cool. It was like, cool, this really feels like an NBA broadcast. The pregame show was sponsored. Like, it didn't subtract, it added to the experience. If you're a kid and you're an 8-year-old and your soccer highlight is brought to you by State Farm, right? What a winning ad that is, right? No one is mad at State Farm. You feel cool because it looks like a Sports Center highlight or a post-game show highlight. So that, I think Game Changer is obviously well positioned to do this as well. Certainly they have the integration with Dick's, so it makes for, they have maybe a little bit of they don't need to monetize every square inch. They could use it for sort of in-house promotion. And then, we had John Stewart from Fast Break, and they're a lot newer, but he talked about like they're trying to get into these tournaments in particular right now by showing up and saying, hey, we have a sponsor. And that's like kind of their leading sales pitch. It's like, hey, we're bringing you free money out of the gate. What the scale looks like on that, I don't know. But I think you're seeing a lot of that in the industry now too, is people just showing up to whether it's clubs or tournaments and just saying, hey, I got a sponsor. I rounded up 10 other places and banded together, and we got Coca-Cola, and they want to sponsor your event, and we're going to take 50% and give you 50%, but it's free money, and like nobody says no. It's one of those things where if money shows up on the doorstep, I think venues, clubs, whatever, leagues are just going to accept whatever terms are given because it's better than zero. And eventually, they'll get smart about like, pitting one against the other would be smart.
Yeah, and I remember if I remember correctly, John was talking about how like he was big on ROI and on location tournaments, like you were saying, because that's like the big thing right now, and brands are kind of shifting that way. Like vanity metrics are still great, impressions, shares, all that stuff, but I just feel like brands are kind of shifting to be like they want to know you got 10 families in the door, and they want to know how many times did they come back again. So I think that's what I kind of piqued my interest about Fast Break Connect, like you were just talking about.
Yeah, and when you compare this stuff with tech that has like geofencing and things like that, like now you can actually like you can measure some of that digitally. I know Carrie and Mark at Base have talked about how they really follow up with these on-site activations they do. They do surveys after the fact, and I would say a challenge here is the follow through, because you're right, like the successful campaigns have like a boots on the ground element. They have a physical activation, something unique, something where there's engagement. That really works well. But the problem is you really need to follow through on that. A lot of times, if you don't have people on the ground, you're counting on the operator to sort of deliver on the back end. And as we know, like even being in media, sometimes selling the ad is easier, but fulfilling the obligation, let alone for a physical in-person event. That is where there might be a little bit of a challenge, because sometimes the longer tail of operators are, less sophisticated and frankly just have many other things to worry about, and don't have the structure to be able to like make the experience what maybe the sales pitch is. So I think the ones who will really win are the ones who are able to either, get the operators to buy in or sort of offer that on the ground support to, a big Fortune 500 brand needs, like, they can't just outsource that operation. They need to know they're actually getting follow through and be able to measure it. And, that's difficult. That's a challenge. It's an overcomable one, but that's definitely the challenge to unlocking the physical things, I think.
No, definitely. I mean, anyone can sell one ad. It's getting multiple ads from the same company because the TikTok or the social, the social clip went well, and they were happy about it. Bring it back a little bit to when we were talking about Rush Soccer. And I said a little bit on a case by case basis how they have kind of Carvana. They have Carvana on the chest of their jerseys. I think an interesting case right there is Rob, the CEO from Perfect Game, who he said on the podcast with you, he was like, I want the Perfect Game brand to stand alone. So I think in terms by case basis, like they do great partnerships with Adidas, Bruce Bolt, and everything. But I wonder how that kind of would happen if youth sports or brands for youth sports kind of come into the industry, and someone tosses a little eight figure deal at them. Would you put something on the jerseys then? Because there's definitely arguments to both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're in some ways playing a different game, which is let's build a brand off of like operating tournaments. Let's build a consumer lifestyle brand. I think that's what they're trying to do. So you can, again, this is like the Wild West, right? You can go any number of directions of this. For Perfect Game, they have enough like of that brand and that history where they're like, hey, we can actually get people to buy stuff that say PG on it. And I'm certain there's sponsorships at their tournaments too. So they could do both, right? I think from an apparel perspective, he's like, hey, like we don't need the free shirts from Nike if we need to put the swoosh on the hat. We'd rather create our own brand and sell it. So, lots of ways you can go. But to my earlier point, here's a baseball tournament scouting network that's able to create a lifestyle brand off of it. Think about if a major brand owned a network of clubs or an entire, like really like branded the club. So instead of the team being called, I'm just, Rush Soccer or, whatever township, such and such, right? The team was actually named like, Dunkin' Donuts, Southeast PA. Imagine you're Dunkin' Donuts and you have naming rights to 24, travel baseball teams across the country. Again, they're not going to operate it, but there might be a white label operator out there who's thinking about it like that. I think you see this in pro sports, right? I don't know. Maybe there's not F1's a good example, right? Maybe not the perfect comp, but that's where I think this can really go. That's how brands, it's always like, do you go from operator to brand or brand to operator? And
you kind of see with AAU basketball teams like the Kyle Lowry team.
Yes.
Great. Kyrie Irving has teams and stuff and everything, but they don't operate the team. They might show up to a tournament or two, but they'll pay for travel. They'll pay for apparel. They'll pay for shoes and whatnot. And I like kind of where your head's at. The 13U Dunkin' Donut blueberry donuts are coming to a Perfect Game tournament near you to take your winnings and then go eat Dunkin' on the way home.
They're all running around in like bright blue uniforms, like for their blueberry coffee, like
Augustus, a Pop-Tart bowl.
Well, like Augustus Glout from Charlie. Do you get that reference at least?
I get that reference. All right. Yeah, I only saw the Johnny Depp one. Sorry.
That's fine.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, we're going to talk to Madison Gates from I9 Sports. Madison Gates, I9 Sports' VP of Marketing. Thanks for joining us on National Girls and Women in Sports Day.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for asking me to join.
Yeah, so I9 Sports was a major part of the newsletter, and it was mostly built around the Gains Are for the Girls initiative. Obviously, it aims to have 500,000 girls participating annually across the platform by 2030. What are some of the ways you're hoping to achieve that goal?
Yeah, great question. So we announced that at a convention last year, and we have seen incredible growth with volleyball and flag up close to 30% year over year. So really leaning into that movement. I9 is definitely positioned in the right way to lean into fun first and kind of building the skills that help kids succeed in life, right? So the survey really pulled into everything that we're all about is fun first, confidence building, meeting with or making sure that you're growing with friends and, having that experience to build on the foundation to be successful in life.
Yeah. Speaking of the survey, over 1,500 families were polled, and it found 89% of girls are most apprehensive about not knowing anyone when they start a sport. I know I9 is already doing that. How do you plan to still combat that nervousness for maybe more girls in youth sports?
Yeah, I think the great part about our partnerships with Coaching Her and Nike is we have great educational pieces for our coaches. So it just kind of talks about how do you connect with the girls before they even step out on the field. That's one way, right? So making sure that the coaches feel open enough to kind of create that community and create that openness Two, we have a referral option of, I want to play with my friend that I've played with before, or I want to join a coaches team that we have. So during our registration process, we have that. So we're thinking and working towards different ways of how can we use technology to make sure that when they sign up, they feel confident and they either have a friend or the coaches and the league that they're signing up for know they're coming in and, want to create that community.
Great.
You talked to James a little bit about this. I-9 obviously focuses a little bit on the younger demographic, right? A little bit more on the recreational side. One of the challenges with female participation is as girls get older and approaching teenage years, the drop off is steeper. Do you think that focus on sort of fun and wanting to play with friends continues into the teenage years, or is there other ways to kind of keep the participation that already exists, right? You guys can kind of help initiate it, right? But what can maybe the industry at large do to kind of keep the numbers relatively even into the high school years?
Yeah, great question. And I am here with the Women's Sports Foundation in DC, and we had our convening of the Equity Project yesterday. And that was our biggest topic, right? Of how do we combat not only the barriers, but the reasons for dropout. And I think it really ranges the socioeconomic places, because sometimes it's going to be the body image. That's something that we're definitely seeing. Or sometimes it's because they have to take care of younger siblings, or the girls have more pressure to do more family. So we're looking not only at I-9, but across the industry of how can we really understand what it is that girls are, why they're dropping out. And I think that's the biggest question, right? There's so many other pressures when they get into high school to keep up grades, and they want to have fun with friends, or they have different pressures from their families. I think it's something that we all as an industry need to continue to learn about. Girls versus boys, right? Like our whole goal is continuing to have more kids join sports as long as they can, because we see it in data that they're more successful when they do multi-sport and they stay at sport for a long time, because it builds leadership and confidence and teamwork, right? And that's what we really want to foster.
Do you think, for boys and men, getting into high school years, there's more professional dollars to go around. There's NIL and direct college payments. So this may be like the $2 billion question, right? A lot of that college money is going to male athletes today. I know there are some Title IX challenges sort of working their way up through the courts. That could potentially unlock windfalls of cash potentially, for girls and females at the college level. How much of the dollars that are available today maybe drive the male participation, and how much more could that unlock on the girls and women's side?
I love this topic, and I could talk for hours about it. I was a college athlete, so when NIL came out, it was like, do I like it? Do I support it? It's just a very different game right now that we're talking about. It's sports as a business versus just going out and having fun. So getting back to your question, I think, yeah, it definitely can drive the excitement on the men's side, on the boys' side to do that. I also think it drives the parents, because they're living vicariously through their kid and being like, oh, this is a paycheck, right? And that goes down to the actual foundational question of like, why are we utilizing kids as a business? And we can talk about this for hours, but for the girls, would it be awesome for them to continue to get that opportunity that boys have? Yes, which is why we're fighting, which is why Title IX has been there. Actually, next year is the 55th anniversary of Title IX. So we scratched the surface a little bit of that conversation with the Women's Sports Foundation yesterday, and I think there's going to be more to come with that. Now, with I-9, right, we're fun first. We're, yes, competitive and is not a bad word, but we want them to really lean into the sportsmanship, the character building, and the multi-sport. So, I think we're in a different spot than highly competitive elite clubs in different sports that we're seeing.
Yeah, we also featured the National Recreation and Park Survey in the newsletter today, and that found that a lack of female coaches in the space is one of the main barriers. Do you guys see that at I-9? And if you do, kind of how do you combat that?
Yeah, great question. as in our survey, right, as they got older, it added a little piece to it. But I think it's more around role models. The girls not necessarily need to be coached by females, but they want to have a positive coaching experience, which is why we partner with Positive Coaching Alliance to make sure our coaches are trained. I We talked a lot about this yesterday too, of female coaches or role models, whether it be referees or assistant coaches. They feel a little different going through puberty and body image when the girls get older, so they can have a little more of a connection. However, I also think and feel, and I don't know if I have this in data, but that they put the women's coaches more on like a pedestal, and they think of them that they need to have more, they need to help regulate their emotions, and there's a lot more to it. So I think, going back to your question, I think that yes, it's great to have women's coaches, and we need to continue to lean into that because there's inequality there. And I think the positive coaching spin is you can have a really great male coach, and you can have a really not so great female coach, and it's all around the experience that the kids have, the girls have, to for the future.
Last one from me, maybe taking a step back to just the overall youth sports landscape. I know the country has some participation goals overall to get like 63% participation by 2032. I may have the exact specifics wrong, but I-9 plays a pretty interesting part in that, because you guys really do focus on the younger demographic, getting people into the pipeline, right? Talk about how I-9 can sort of help drive, participation goals overall by onboarding kids into the sports funnel and from an early age.
Yeah, great question. So, we've been around for over 20 years, and we've been having this conversation around our brand positioning and making sure we're a thought leader in this space. And I think just reviving that, we're working through this, and the Gains Are for the Girls is the first biggest campaign of, we took the data, now how can we actually lean into it to make a difference in getting more girls in and staying? And then from there, we're going to build it out and more. We're not going to change our mission of helping all kids succeed in life sport. That's who we are. That's who we always will be. But it's how do we continue to be the thought leader, connect with parents, connect with the consumer, and let them know that it's not around early specialization. Multi-sport really continues to help kids grow, and they have so many different opportunities. And again, I-9 is really set up for success in that, and our operations are really steadfast and foundational. And now it's okay, let's be a little more, let's connect a little more with the consumer. How can we share who we are, and make sure that they have a great experience, right? We can put it out there, but making sure it's delivered on the field is going to be huge. Retention is massive for us.
Yeah. Last one from me. Obviously, women's sports as a whole is having a big moment right now. Basketball is exploding. Flag football, women's, girls is exploding. Volleyball as well. Is there any sports that you guys have identified in I-9 specifically for women's or girls sports that have kind of been level participation numbers across the field?
Yeah, I mean, soccer, right? We have a ton of competition now across the industry. I think that, I don't know the exact numbers, right? But for I-9, soccer is pretty flat for us. But I think it's a lot of competition, right? Every club has a little peewee and a little youth league. So that one we're seeing there. Now we've got the World Cup coming up. So how can we continue to lean into that? We got the Olympics, in a few years. So, and the Women's World Cup. So soccer is one that we want to continue to grow.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking your time out of the conference that you're at for to talk to us.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. I'm excited to meet you guys in person at the conference.
Yeah, likewise. Look forward to seeing you in Philly in a couple months.
All right. Thanks to Madison Gates for coming on. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to you, the listener. Great show. We'll talk to you on Friday.